Hey everyone, welcome back to Ideas and Impact, where entrepreneurs share insights and ideas to transform your life or business. Each week, I bring on experts to share their secrets, ideas, and insights of what's working now to impact their life or business in a positive way. I'm your host, Jeremy Jones, and you can get all of the show notes to this episode by going to askjeremyjones.com. By the way, speaking of making an impact through ideas, did you know that 82% of entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants say they'd like to author a book, but less than 1% actually finish and do it? Normally, the reason is they get stuck in the content and putting it together because of the time that it takes. They're frustrated in getting the book published or launched, and then promoting it is a whole other thing. And so we put it into an easy to follow system called a book blueprint system. And now we have a new workshop where you can follow along and see the entire system of how we make books profitable. And you can get that by going to authorblackbox.com and see the entire system. Now let's get to today's episode. Today we're joined with Rania Hoteit. And Rania is a multi-award-winning serial entrepreneur, a global impact leader, an author, advisor, and speaker with recognitions from the White House and many other places. Rania, thank you so much for joining us here today. Today, we're talking about harnessing courage. Let's start out our conversation with just talk about the impact that it's made on putting a focus on harnessing courage for you personally. And then let's dive into the first topic today.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. First of all, to start, the first talking point that we wanted to cover is really the power of taking risks and embracing the unknown. And courage is a huge part of that. So I want to talk about the impact of this idea on life and also the impact on business. When it comes to life, taking risks really is where transformation begins. When you step into the unknown, you open yourself to possibilities you might never have imagined. And I experienced this firsthand when I left my home country alone at the age of 18 with only $1,000 in my pocket. I had no set plan, no clear vision for the future, and no safety net. And that leap into the unknown took a lot of courage. It was one of the boldest decisions I've ever made. It was very terrifying, but it was also the moment that forever changed my life. I faced fear, isolation, discrimination, and tremendous obstacles being a young female immigrant in a foreign country. But these challenges taught me the power of trusting myself and adapting to whatever comes my way. At the end of the day, talking about courage, risk-taking is about a lot of courage, but it's not about being reckless. It's about having the courage to act and move forward, even when the outcomes are uncertain. And in life, this can mean starting over, whether it's changing your career or moving to a new city or a country or stepping away from what's comfortable to you or bouncing back from failure. These moments truly become the turning points that define us and shape who we are. And it all starts with courage. When it comes to the impact on business, in business, calculated risk-taking is the fuel for innovation and growth. Whether launching a new product or disrupting an outdated system or entering a new market, courage, again, is what is needed because bold moves create competitive advantages. For example, in my situation, in my experience, I took one of those risks by entering a highly complex male-dominated field of manufacturing and technology. And as a first mover, it was very difficult. On top of that, being an immigrant and a young entrepreneur and a woman, I faced stereotypes, sexism, and even sabotage. But it was my courage that helped me to stay committed to my vision and allowed me to continue moving forward. And it helped me to gain a strong foothold as a leader in an industry that's very resistant to change. And eventually it laid the foundation for what would become my company, ID4A Technologies. So taking risks is really what allowed me not to just participate in the industry, but to help reshape it. And I've learned that playing it safe in business leads to stagnation, while embracing risk opens the door to redefining entire industries. We have to begin with really understanding the power of courage and the power of risk-taking if we want to create change.
I totally agree with you. And one of the things I just want to highlight before we move to the next point is you said, being in business for yourself or any endeavor that you make, there is a calculated risk there's risks that have to be taken. And the thing that I want to highlight is that you take a calculated risk, which is means, weighing out all the things, looking at what could happen, what are the benefits, and doing it in a smart way. And so I love that you highlighted it in that way. So let's move on to the next one. The second big idea is turning challenges into catalysts for change. How have you done that?
Sure. Again, I'm going to talk about it from both perspectives, life and business, since they're interconnected, but there's always differences in how we handle that. Yeah. In life, struggles are part of life, and that's what shapes all of us in the most profound ways. I personally was born and raised in Lebanon, and growing up, I experienced war firsthand. I faced forced displacement, financial hardship, and the instability of a fractured home as well. And that was just the beginning. When I left Lebanon at the age of 18, I came to a foreign country with only $1,000 in my pocket and no real plan. I also didn't have a support system. And as I started to build my life and later a business, I encountered new forms of struggle. Being an immigrant, a woman, a founder, and a male-dominated industry brought its own set of challenges. And those were the moments that I felt completely alone, and I questioned whether I could keep going. But through it all, I made a decision. I wouldn't let those experiences break me or define me. And my strategy was I began to reframe each challenge not as a setback, but as a lesson and as a feedback, a chance to grow and learn. And every painful experience became fuel for progress. Every door that closed pushed me to build my own. And I began to understand that resilience isn't only about enduring difficulties, it's about transforming them. And with resilience, I was able to turn pain into purpose and hardship into momentum. Loss, setbacks, obstacles, hardship, it's all part of everyone's story. And they could be very overwhelming, but they can also be powerful sources of transformation. How we respond to them is what truly defines our path. And when we meet adversity with determination and a growth mindset, obstacles truly become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, and we unlock our potential in ways we never imagined. In the business world, it's the same thing. Challenges such as market disruptions, industry shifts, financial uncertainty, all can become unexpected drivers of growth and innovation. In fact, we see it all the time. Businesses that thrive are often those that adapt and innovate in the face of adversity. And I experienced this firsthand on my entrepreneurial journey as well. Building multiple businesses, including ID4A Technologies, it really required transforming adversity into forward momentum. Whether navigating volatile markets or challenging the status quo, I learned to treat every obstacle as a prompt for reinvention. Especially that being a first mover and a woman in a male-dominated industry wasn't easy at all. So it took bold thinking and relentless perseverance to not only navigate the difficulties, but to turn them into strength and use them to our business's advantage by pioneering the use of different technologies like AI and robotics and machine learning and others to revolutionize manufacturing, while also challenging the limits of what's possible for women in tech and creating a blueprint for others to follow. So in the end, really, challenges have the power to shape stronger leaders, better companies, and more impactful lives.
Yeah, well said. And like you mentioned, when you face challenges, that's where you learn the most. And that's where you can then apply that to, because there's always going to be different challenges, bigger challenges, and it's inevitable. We're all going to face change. And a lot of times change is a new challenge, right?
Absolutely. And it's really important to learn how to reframe adversity as a teacher, not as an enemy. And instead of asking, why is this happening to me? It's critical to ask, what can I learn from this? So that's how we cultivate a resilient mindset. And with this right mindset, you can turn every obstacle into a launch pad for growth, and you can transform your greatest hardships into your greatest breakthroughs.
I love that. Good stuff. Well, let's go on to the third big idea, aligning profit with purpose. Talk about this one.
Purpose gives meaning to everything that we do. It gives meaning to our efforts. It helps us to stay focused and motivated. When your life aligns with your values, your work feels more fulfilling and everything you do becomes more meaningful. For me personally, success was never just about profit. It was always about creating impact, creating a ripple effect that can improve lives. And as an entrepreneur, I made it my mission and a focus to embed social responsibility at the heart of my work. And I've found fulfillment far beyond financial returns by doing so. And through my role as CEO of ID4A Technologies, I've had the honor of helping to increase equity in the workplace and the industrial sector. I've helped rescue over 2 million people. Many of them were women and girls from exploitative labor conditions. So leading with purpose has personally enabled me to leverage innovation and technology to drive environmental, economic, and social impact. And whether that's mentoring others, advocating for equity, or driving sustainability, I've seen it from my experience how leading with purpose can turn businesses into a force for good. And that leads me to talk more about business, because the impact on business is tremendous as well. Businesses with purpose at their core outperform those without. And especially, as you know, today's consumers, employees, and stakeholders demand more than products. They want values. They're increasingly choosing brands and companies that prioritize sustainability and equity and positive social impact. This is why companies that do prioritize people and the planet begin to see much higher engagement, they gain deeper loyalty, and they create stronger long-term growth opportunities. So it's critically important to embed purpose in what you do, because at the end of the day, it really empowers you to build a legacy, not just deliver better business outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what makes work fulfilling, right? Not just, you go to work and you just do a thing. Is when it impacts other people, that's where it really becomes fulfilling, right?
Absolutely. And that's why it's always important to define your why. Knowing your purpose will guide your decisions and will inspire others as well. And a purpose-driven approach always leads to deeper connections, lasting impact, and sustainable success, no matter what that means to you and no matter what you do.
Yeah, well said. Well, thank you so much, Rania, for coming on and sharing these insights with the listeners here today. What's the best way that everyone can connect with you or follow you online?
The best way to connect with me nowadays is through Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. My website is currently under construction, but you can eventually reach me at raniahoteit.com. or follow me at Rania Hoteit _official public page on Instagram, or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy.
You are very welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today as well. Be sure you connect with Rania today, and you can get the show notes to this episode and all the links we mentioned here by going to askjeremyjones.com. Click on podcasts, and you'll see this episode right there at the top. And again, if you're wanting to put together a profitable book or market and promote and have your book reach a lot more people than it currently is, you can use our author black box process to be able to do that. Again, go to authorblackbox.com. Thanks again for joining us today. I encourage you, as you're listening to this episode, to take one insight or idea that Rania shared. She shared a lot of really great, insightful things. Take one idea that really stuck out today and see how you can implement this into your life or your business, and that's how you make an impact, by putting a great idea into action. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.